What's up, FishTube friends? My name's Taylor from Fishbox Studio. Welcome back. Today I want to help the beginner. Maybe you kept a couple plants in your fish tank and you kept a couple fish along with it, of course. And maybe now you want to take that jump into being a planted tank hobbyist and become a legit aquascaper. Well, today I'm going to give you 5 tips that can up your game from a beginner to a pro. Now, these tips aren't going to be in any sort of order of importance. They're just 5 tips that, in my personal opinion, I think they might help. They're for a beginner, or maybe you're a seasoned pro and you just want to be reminded of the basics. Let's start with tip number 1. Mix up your plants. You ever seen a grassy meadow or an open field? You don't always, maybe you don't quite notice it, but there are more plants than just one plant in like a grassy meadow field. Let's say you pick something like dwarf hairgrass to replicate that look. And while dwarf hairgrass on its own looks great, I will say, because it's one of my favorites, why not try mixing it up with something else like maybe glossostigma? By mixing up your plants, it looks more naturalistic. Going back to that grass field that we just mentioned, if you look closely at a grass field, there's not always just one species in that field. Even in your front lawn, most likely, you'll find various species of different grasses inside of it, or weeds. So mixing up your plants is already what nature does around us. Why not copy that? There's beauty in even the unorganization of nature, and that can help you achieve a better and more beautiful and practical look to your tank. Tip number 2, design your scape and then decide what fish you want to put in. It's often a common thing when you go to the fish store and you find some really cool fish that you might want. So you buy them, and it's often an impulse. And then you learn that maybe they don't go too good in your tank. Maybe it's the look, or maybe it's the water parameters. Remember, things like aqua soil, they're actually meant to lower your water hardness and create acidic conditions that favor plants, and not all fish do well in those kind of conditions. Another thing is sometimes the fish are too rambunctious or don't quite set the right color tone that you might want. Also, sometimes when you come home with new fish and you have this idea of what you're going to design in your head, sometimes the idea doesn't always make it out into the actual tank because you realize maybe I'm missing this piece of wood or these certain plants, or this just doesn't look the way I was expecting it, so I'm going to change it to this instead. And then maybe that idea doesn't quite fit those fish as well as you thought it did. So remember, design your scape, scape it, plant it, and then go and pick what fish you think will complement that scape the best. Tip number 3, light fish load. Think of a tank that has a whole bunch of fish. Well, that looks great in certain aquascapes, and depending on what you've designed, it might not look that great. It might look too busy and sort of distract you away from the look of the scape in general. So I would say start with a light fish load. Not only will it be easier on you for maintenance, but it can also maybe be the right thing for the tank itself. Having a light fish load adds more mystery to the tank. It adds more peace and zen to that tank. Say you have a visitor come over, they look at your tank, they think it looks amazing, and while they're staring at it, they see a quick pop of red or blue, and it just disappears. And that sparks their curiosity, like, what was that? And then they start looking at the tank harder to try and find what that was. Having a light fish load helps with that immensely. Tip number 4. Use small fish. Let's take this 75-gallon tank right behind me, for example. This 75-gallon tank can fit quite a bit of fish, even big ones. Angelfish. It could fit discus if I really wanted it to. It could fit acaras. It could fit African cichlids, although I wouldn't put African cichlids in an aquascaping tank, or at least a planted one. But you know what I mean. It can fit a lot of big fish. The problem with using big fish in a nice aquascape tank is not only does it up your maintenance, but a lot of the bigger fish are also not always kind to plants. There are some exceptions. Like angelfish, no, they're pretty good with aquascape tanks. But the key to using a light fish isn't about the fish in general, it's about the look and feel of the tank as a whole. Think of it as a whole environment. Using small fish make the tank look bigger than it really is. It adds depth to it. And it really helps with the viewing experience of the tank. So use smaller fish than you need. Tip number 4, think depth. Depth of the tank. As you scape the tank, don't just use a flat thing of gravel. Think hills, think mountains, think valleys. As you look at the mountains and notice that the roads go right through the 2 mountains, that's like a valley. Think of that. To add layers and depth to your tank, you want multiple levels of depth. Think of having maybe some empty space up in the front, like negative space. That can be a beneficial thing for your tank. And then it goes to a carpeting plant, and then it goes to a medium plant, and then a big plant. Or something like that. Maybe you want a sand valley or walkway right down the middle of your tank. That can look really cool. But think depth. And use hills. Rather than having a flat layer of substrate, build mountains in it, or build hills. You can use things like using a giant filter media bag or a couple of them to save money and cost on buying so much aqua soil. It's one of the techniques I used when I built this thing, if you didn't notice that. Check out my last video if you see that. I'll post a link to it right up here. Think depth and use hills, valleys, layers. Tip number 5. Think of how, before you start building the scape, think of how you want the tank to be viewed and how it's going to be viewed. Where is the tank in your house? Is it in the living room? Are people going to look at it right as they walk in the door? Maybe it's in a bedroom and you can see the side of it from the hall. So think of how people are going to view the tank. And think of a good composition that'll go well with how those viewing angles are going to go. If you're going to have people viewing your tank from the front and maybe the other side, maybe because it sits in the hallway, maybe consider a triangular shape or composition, where you have tall plants on one side and it sort of tapers down with smaller plants to the other side. That is an excellent look for tanks that are going to be viewed from not only the front but also the side. Maybe it's only going to be viewed from the front. In that case, consider a double island where you have an island of plants on one side and another island of other plants on the other side, with maybe like a valley down the middle or something like that. That's great for having a viewpoint from the front. Let's say you're doing a tank that's going to be viewed from all directions, all 4 directions, because it sits in the middle of your area. Maybe consider a single island look, where you just have a space in the middle that has a bunch of plants with empty space around it, to give that sort of look of from all directions that inspires the viewer to think, what's inside that plant of grass, or what's on the other side of that thing of plants. Maybe your tank is going to be viewed from 3 angles, from back, front, and side, because it's like a peninsula. Well, think of a single peninsula look, where similar to a triangular scape, you have plants on one side, starting from the wall, the side that's not going to be viewed from, and it tapers down, but this time, rather than filling it up all the way to the front or back of the tank with plants, you have a little bit of negative space around that triangular view to look like sort of a peninsula island. That's a good composition for a tank that's going to be viewed from 3 angles. So think of the angles that the tank is going to be viewed from and design around that. That's all the tips I have for you today. If you'd like to know more, if you have any tips that you'd like to suggest to other people, please link them down or post them in the comments and let everybody know. Share your knowledge so we can help grow this hobby and share the fun and joy of aquascaping. Thank you so much for doing this video. Please like and share. My name is Taylor. I'll catch you next time.